Okay, we are going to analyze and break down this debate, surrounded debate with Candace Owens talking about the sexual revolution and feminism. So we're going to watch it and we'll break it down as it goes along.
Sexual revolution has devalued women and made them infinitely less happy.
Hi.
Hello. Hi.
Hi, I'm
What's your name?
Samaya.
Samaya, nice to meet you. I'm Candace.
Nice to meet you too. So my question for you is, statistics show that 60% of women who are murdered by their intimate partners, murdered by someone that they are in close relations with. That's according to the UN from 2023.
Yeah.
So how is it that, women are so valued, quote unquote, in the home, and yet that's the place where they're at the most danger?
Okay, so I'm not sure what that has to do with the sexual revolution.
Right, the sexual revolution.
The first claim.
The sexual revolution gave.
I'm happy to answer it. I'm just saying that, if you broaden that statistic, you
Sure.
are more likely in general just to be murdered by somebody you know. So, of course.
But men are much less likely to be murdered by, their
That's
intimate
not
partners.
true.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I'm sure, because men are less likely to be murdered by women. Full stop.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that statistic makes sense to me. I'm still not sure how this correlates to whether or not
The sexual revolution increased women's ability to leave the house, women's ability to control their own reproductive capabilities, women's ability to, control their own capacity within the workforce in regards to their own sexual capacity. So it is the very fact that the sexual revolution happened that made our access to the workplace much more, or just the public sphere in general, much more easy. So without the sexual revolution, women would be much more confined to the place where they're at the most danger. Isn't that true?
So you think that, just so I'm trying to understand your argument here, you think that if we didn't have the sexual revolution, less women or more women would be murdered? Are you saying that women are
more women would be murdered, for sure.
Okay, I disagree with that. I still don't think it has anything to do with the claim that women are infinitely less happy because of the sexual revolution, which has devalued
I think
women.
you'd probably be less happy if you're being murdered.
Oh.
Anyone?
Okay, yeah, I don't, okay. Okay. There is definitely a correlation between personal relationships and domestic violence. And just to be clear,
Right.
if we're talking about just like monogamous relationships, the most violent relationships that are on the books are between lesbian partners. Yes, when people are intimate.
That's not a
that is actually.
So we can fact check. They fact check on here. A survey from 2013 shows that 60% of bisexual women and 44% of lesbian women reported intimate partner violence compared to 35% of straight women, according to Stand for Families Free of Violence. There's a point to make about this.
No, the statistic you're talking about is people who have faced domestic violence. Lesbians, yes, are more likely to have faced domestic violence, but that's because they typically came from relationships with men in which they were mistreated.
Lesbian relationships are the most violent relationships that we have on the books.
But we can move on.
They can fact check that claim. The point being is that it's not exactly a stunning statistic.
So this is a common thing that people do when they argue. They don't take the claim further. So they're trying to figure out if a woman would be more likely to be murdered if there was no sexual revolution. And Candace's point is to say, well, the most violent relationship is with lesbians. Therefore, what? She's trying to put some type of moralistic claim on it, like because someone is in a lesbian relationship, they're more likely to be in a violent relationship. Therefore, you shouldn't be lesbian. But this is what happens a lot of times in these political arguments or these debates. A claim is made and then people fight over that claim, but it's not taken any further. The young lady would be wise to ask her, okay, so you're saying that lesbian relationships are more violent, therefore what? And what Candace is implying is that because they're more violent, then you shouldn't be in a lesbian relationship. But she's unlikely to extrapolate that to anything else. Like any other type of relationship, men are more likely to murder their female partner more than a woman is more likely to murder her male partner. Therefore, should there be only lesbian relationships? It's kind of a deflective tactic that she does, and because she's not challenged on it, she's able to make that claim and just move on, and it's like just her throwing a little bit of a jab. But in this case, if you ask her, therefore what? But she has a kind of a semi-rational claim to say, well, because lesbian relationships are more violent, then you shouldn't be in a lesbian relationship.
to say that when people are in relationships, period, whether those relationships are homosexual, whether they're
But
married,
you're saying that the sexual
Let
revolution.
me finish. I've let you try to explain how this is correlated to happiness, and I don't think it does. I actually think you're having a different debate right now. But yes, absolutely, it makes perfect sense that you are more likely in general when you are in a relationship, because people are driven by anger by people that they know, whether or not we're talking about boyfriend and girlfriend, girlfriend and girlfriend, husband and a wife, a husband and a husband, or a wife and a wife. Yes, of course, the instances of domestic violence are going to take place when you're inside of a home. But the sexual revolution, encouraging women to give up their goods for free, which is what I'm speaking about, and encouraging men not to marry these women or to have long-term relationships, what I am saying is a direct contributor to their unhappiness, because women are giving up their.
So of course she's coming from a perspective of women having goods to give up for free, and this is a common theme when conservatives debate non-conservatives, or when liberals debate non-liberals from the political perspective. Candace is saying that women have this thing that men want, and the value of the woman is her goods, aka her sexual prowess or her vagina. So because they're giving up the goods for free, her value is being given up for free, then a lot of problems happen. So she's arguing against the point of the sexual revolution, because in kind of a reductionist way, she's saying that when the sexual revolution happened, then women were told by society to start having more free and liberal type sex, and because of that, now men respect them less. But in a sense, it's just that she is valuing a woman as a sexual object, even more so than the men that she's claiming who disrespect them.
Goods for free, and women are now entering the workplace, and that does not actually make them happy.
Okay, pause. Sorry, you've been voted out by the majority. Please return to your seat.
Hello.
Hi there.
How are you? I'm Candace.
Nice to meet you. Julian, my pronouns are they, them. It's very interesting to think of it when we just think about the gender binary.
She did not like that they, them at all.
It's, how do we place value on human beings in general? And so when we think about, placing value, that comes from a place of power, right? So I think let's select like the Victorian era. You have this dominant group of people coming from white supremacy, deciding who gets to have a proper status in the world. And so that is already like taking human beings and devaluing them. And so what the sexual revolution did was to help people seek out empowerment, which increased value, no matter the gender. So when it comes to sexual revolution, let's look at one contribution is sex education. I'm actually an educator. I teach sociology and LGBTQ studies. And I have absolutely seen the positive outcome with the sexual revolution and sex education, and seeing people empower themselves.
It's clear that she sees somebody whose pronouns who have they, them, and she's like, I'm a teacher. And Candace is like, oh my God, you're teaching children. And you see she has to fight her emotions there.
And with that comes safety when it comes to decreasing STIs, abuse, sexual assault. Again, people get to empower themselves of all genders. And I know earlier you mentioned about violence amongst lesbians and sapphic community, which I do identify within. All genders can be subjected to violence.
That was the point I was making. So I wasn't sure of how her claim was relating to what we were talking about, whether or not it makes people happy or unhappy. Relationships are obviously a ground where there can be violence.
I guess I could just wrap it up by saying, like, if we all have access to like sex education through the incredible work of feminists through the sexual revolution, we are able to gain access to information and gain skills to create an equitable society, egalitarian, within our relationships, whether it be platonic or romantic. I'm so grateful for those feminists who have fought for us, so we can gain those spaces and create a healthier society.
Okay, are you a believer in the government doing everything that it can to make people happy?
So when it comes, as someone that teaches in the public sector, I understand.
So again, another debate and argument tactic that she uses quite well. This person went on a 2-minute rant talking about violence, the sexual revolution, education, and then Candace is trying to pigeonhole her by saying, are you a believer in this thing? Because that's her point of attack. If she can get her to say yes or no to a particular statement that she makes, then she knows how to argue with that point. It's difficult for her to deal directly with what this person said, so she has to say, well, do you believe this? And then when this person says yes or no, then she can proceed with her argument. It's clear that she's not really listening to what this person is saying. She's trying to pigeonhole her so she can move forward and make her point.
And the concern when it comes to what is a teacher, what kind of information they're providing to the students. I do believe that we, as a teacher, I should be able to give that sort of information. Again, I teach college students. One of my claims is I believe that we should mandate sex education amongst college students. So yes, I do want the state, I would like the government to give us those resources so we can implement that curriculum.
Okay, you consider yourself a feminist, I'm assuming?
Queer feminist. There's variations, right?
What is a queer feminist as opposed to a feminist, just so I understand?
Well, so I heavily believe in queer theory. So, the gender binary that we understand, it comes from colonization. So someone who is mixed race, family from Mexico, we have the Mushes in Mexico, which is an indigenous tribe. They believe in gender fluidity. And then you have European colonizers coming who dismantle that. And now everything that we understand when it comes to gender is a Western lens. So from a queer...
So you don't even think women exist, I'm guessing?
I think everyone should be empowered to figure out...
So again, it's the same thing. Her debate strategy is to try to get people to jump into this yes or no box. She talked about indigenous people and queer theory and these kind of broad concepts. And Candace is like, well, you don't believe women exist. Because her debate, she has a Rolodex of things to say. And it's kind of like she has to play with inside that Rolodex. So no matter what you tell her, she has to get you to choose one of those Rolodex cards, and then she has the answers to it. Um, and it sounds crazy for someone to even be asked a question, you don't believe women exist. This is a way for her to make this person look crazy.
Identity and explore the language that best describes themselves. So freedom, America, right? America, freedom. And I want to believe in that when it comes to identity. Everyone should have the freedom to decide how they want to identify, as long as they're not causing harm. But that's where we get into the debate, what is harm?
So just, again, to be clear, to go back to this claim, we are debating female happiness. You are saying you do not identify as a female.
I identify with all gender expressions. So from masculinity to femininity.
So I'm just saying, are you just saying that as a part of queer theory, you're debating whether or not women are happier after the sexual revolution? I'm just trying to understand, because it seems like you're debating queer theory as opposed to female.
I believe all genders benefit from the sexual revolution.
You've been voted out by the majority. Please return to your seat.
I mean, that wasn't even, they didn't even debate. She just asked her questions.
Hello.
I'm Zena.
Zena, very much like your name.
Thank you so much. Nice to meet you.
Can we start with the beginning? Do you identify as a female?
I identify as a woman, yeah.
Okay.
Right. So I do want to get back to your premise.
Again, that's just a jab. She has to, the reason why she said that is because it makes the previous person kind of look off. Because it's very easy for conservative types to always just say, well, what is a female? And that's a good go-to. And it can trap someone who's very far to the left or ultra liberal.
So you're saying that women have been devalued, right, by the sexual revolution. This kind of presumes two things. One, that there has been a loss of worth, right, for women. So you're saying that women have, as human beings, lost worth. Women who, prior to the sexual revolution, were worth more than women today.
I would say that, yes, women have devalued themselves by becoming overtly sexual. That's my claim. So, I mean, also according to and let's not remove this from the other part of the claim, which it has made women infinitely less happy.
Right. So are you saying, but you're saying that according to you, women have been devalued?
Not according to me. According to the time in which people are getting married, how difficult it is for people to find a partner that's willing to commit to them. And I think that's in large part due to the fact that women are offering sex for free, because it was a major component of the sexual revolution was this idea.
So a woman's worth is tied to her sexuality?
It's not tied to, well, absolutely. If you're going to be having multiple partners, you are going to be devaluing yourself.
You're worth less as a human being?
Not as a human being, just, in terms of trying to have a partnership and a productive relationship. Certainly men are not going to be clamoring to have a relationship with somebody when the market is throwing them.
A man's response to your actions?
That's not true. I mean, there's a lot of men who clamor to have a sexual relationship with women who've had sex with tons of people. So that's not true at all.
Is what defines your worth, right?
Yeah, well, I would say that I would argue that what makes women actually happy is family. So if you're interrupting, so I'm just going to connect the dots for you. When women are having sex with multiple partners, it devalues them for men, right?
For men. So, yes, so men define a woman's worth.
Well, I would say both of them kind of define one another's worth, because I think the ultimate goal for people to be happy is actually family.
Okay, so you're saying in all cases, a woman is going to be more fulfilled in regards to family.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
And this is going to work in all cases. So you're saying there's no individual case in which a woman can feel, fulfilled without being tied to other people in the case of family.
I think there could be an exceptional case for everything. I think there are exceptional cases, but I think that if we all start trying to be the exception as opposed to recognizing the rule, which is that people in life are more fulfilled.
Fact check. There's conflicting research on this topic. Pew Research found that a higher percentage of adults want a career or close friends to be fulfilled compared to kids or marriage, while the Institute of Family Studies found married men and women are happier than their unmarried counterparts, largely because they have a family support system. I mean, it's a gross generalization. It just comes down to what you believe. And it's clear that Candace is coming from more of a faith-based perspective, because she's essentially it's more objectifying women and saying that the ultimate measure of a woman's happiness is whether or not she has children and if she's partnered with a man exclusively. So
when they achieve a family unit and when they have children, women in particular, especially aspiring to children, then you are going to end up with a bunch of people who are unhappy because your job cannot replace the feeling of having a family.
So what you're saying is we need to look at every individual case and see what is going to fulfill you, or what is going to, I guess, essentially predict your happiness more. Because if we look at, for example, the Nordic countries, right? These are countries, I'm talking about like Sweden, Denmark, right? These countries tend to be like, I think in the past 14 years, they've been ranked as the highest in happiness and marital satisfaction from women, right? And we said they also...
It is true that Finland, Denmark, Iceland, Sweden, and Norway consistently rank highest in the World Happiness Report. In fact, in 2025, they are ranked 1 through 4 and 7.
have been the most open in regards to like, sexual norms and sexual roles, right? So, and we also see that there's less rates of like STDs reported. We see more, and that's also due to comprehensive sex education that's pushed in those countries. So we see that and that's like a direct result.
Nordic countries do have lower rates of STDs, including HIV, according to the study in the National Library of Medicine.
Of the sexual revolution, right? So when we're seeing direct reports of happiness, right, we don't have these same rates in America. In these countries that are more sexually open, why would we see like those rates in those type of countries?
So I think you might be referring to this sort of mass-produced study that was a part of like a behavioral science study, which said that women were the happiest women in the world were women that were actually unmarried and had careers. No, okay, well there was
reported happiness.
Okay, sure. I'm talking about the same thing. It was reported happiness, but it could be there's tons of studies. The point being is that in 2023 there was this massive scandal where they recognized that a lot of these studies that were being produced, behavioral science, was proven to be a complete fraud, and they were unable to reproduce these studies. And they also found that the data had been faked. The data that we can look.
In 2023, Harvard investigated Dr. Francesca Gino for fraud. She was accused of manipulating data in 4 papers published from 2012 to 2020. She was investigated by the university and suspended without pay, and the school is trying to revoke her tenure. That doesn't give details on what she was manipulating, but
that I think shows, and you can let me know if you agree with this, if women, and under the imagination of the feminist umbrella, were really unhappy when they were in the home, and then entering the workforce has made women happier and infinitely feeling more secure about themselves, we could, I think, reasonably expect that there would have been a decrease in suicide rates amongst women.
You would have to go ahead and show how that correlation, right, is going to be a direct cause of women going into the workforce.
Okay, well, how can we measure? Then you have to give me a way that we can measure happiness. How can we measure happiness? I would say suicide rates would be a good thing to look at. Drug, alcohol consumption would be
of course, right? But we would have to. We can say, I can say at this point in society, I don't think everyone's happy. I think there's a lot of things that we need to reconcile.
Okay, that's what I'm getting at.
Right,
So
but we have to look at the cause, right? Why are these things predicted, right? And for example, if we talk about men, there are a lot of things we can look at, right? That tend to predetermine suicide, right? But we can't say, oh, these two things are happening at the same time. This caused this other thing.
Yes, that's right. But I do think that we can objectively say that women who are committing suicide rates more than they were in the 1950s, like it has actually increased marginally. That's not a sign that us entering the workforce suddenly made us
How is it a cause of the workforce?
We're also binge drinking at a higher rate.
How's this cause of
opioids at a higher rate?
How is this a cause of
because I think women are being put on a pathway aspirationally.
But you're saying you think this, right? But where's the cause? Like you're not substantiating the claim. You're saying this is what I think. I'm seeing two.
Okay, pause. You've been voted out by the majority. Please return to your seat.
Thank you so much.
Zena did a good job. Candace is just doing the classic causation correlation. Because there was a sexual revolution, and after that sexual revolution, there's been an increase in suicide rate and alcoholism and antidepressive medication prescriptions, that she's saying that was the cause of that increase in these kind of pathologies. But, I guarantee you there was an increase in suicide rate in men, an increase in the rate of prescription drugs for both genders, or for all genders. So, yeah, Zena did a good job. Candace was kind of spinning there, I think.
Great job. Great job. Hello. Hi.
Hi, I'm Nikki.
Nice to meet you.
So when we're talking about the value of women on a societal scale and how we view each other, right? When you're devaluing us, you're objectifying us. And follow me, I promise. But rape rates have gone down by about half in the last 20 years, right? So
rape rates over the past 20 years are difficult to track because the FBI changed the definition in 2013, which led to a significant increase in cases. In 2013, the definition of rape was changed, which caused more incidences to be included in rape. Interesting.
if you're saying we're less valuable now, why wouldn't we be suffering at a higher rate?
So is the argument that you're making, just so I understand, that because women are giving up sex for free, they're not being raped?
Every study shows rape is not correlated with just sexual gratification. It is a power structure.
Okay.
So it is about objectifying and abusing women when you rape them, not about whether or not you want sex. What I am saying is that women are less objectified, so therefore we are being raped less.
Okay, so you think that in today's society, because this is pretty wild for me. In the 1950s, you're saying women were more objectified than today in the land of OnlyFans, the Kardashian clan, and women that are essentially putting up their boobs and butts for free on Instagram. You're saying we finally have achieved less objectification, where women can't even get onto in advertising. You can't even advertise a bag without them having to be naked in order for them to get a career as a model. You're saying, oh great, we've achieved actually less objectification.
So I'm not trying to suggest that I think that the over-commodification of women's bodies is positive. But what I am saying is that when you're going to the 1950s, that we shouldn't put this glazed look of, oh, it was so happy. We had single income households and we got to stay home. We also had a pill popping problem. We also were viewed as maids. Like, we were seen as a house appliance far more than we were as people. And so when you have that kind of objectification where you are in a subservient position, I think we're facing a different form today. But I think that rape is a signifier of a contradiction to your statement.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It doesn't make sense, but I do want to rebut it on a couple of points. So first, I just want to say, suggesting that objectification has gone downward since the 1950s is wild. That's just a firm no. That is not the truth. You know that's not true.
Wait, so do you feel
but
like
hold on, let me answer your second thing.
Okay.
Second thing, you then brought up, okay, women were at home, but they were
So again, in debate style, Candace recognized that she had a point, that she was able to say, are you saying that back in the day when there was less Instagram and OnlyFans and nakedness, that's less objectification? So she had to reiterate that point. She wants to say, look, I got you on that point. Let's move on to the other one. It is an interesting point, I think, on the surface level. If you are defining objectification on whether or not a woman is showing her body to the public more, then certainly that's increased, but that would be true of men as well. It's more a product of the times and less a product of the sexual revolution. That's what I would argue, but it's a difficult point to make in this kind of short kind of round table style of debate. Because typically when we think of objectification, we think of some type of sexual thing, less clothes, being seen as a sexual object. And because of technology and the way information is transported, and partly because of the sexual revolution, women and men, that's kind of the counterpoint, but women in this case are revealing themselves more sexually. So it's easy to say that they're objectified more.
pill popping. Well, you then have to acknowledge we're actually popping more pills now, right? So we have actually increased our amount of pill popping. Women are having overdoses on opioids. And on top of that, since I think 1999, by rate, we are increasing our opioid use compared to men. So
in 2018, a 2018 study found that women were more likely to report prescription opioid compared to men, 55% to 42%. I mean, you can look at that in several ways. You can say women are less, which is Candace's point, women are less happy, so they're more likely to be on pain medication. But aren't there objective things that women go through that may lead them to have pain medication? Like, what if they're having a child? What if they're having some labor pain? Are we looking at the rate of surgery between men and women? We would just have to assume here that when people get prescription opioids, Candace is kind of assuming, well, you only get it if you're sad and depressed and unhappy, but people get opioids for a variety of reasons. And then again, there's a value judgment on getting a prescription opioid. We're saying if you get a prescription opioid, then automatically that means you're unhappy. But what if you got into a car accident? What if you are abused by your male partner? And then, what if you fell on a job? So just because you have a prescription opioid, that doesn't equal unhappiness. She's very good at the classic causation correlation type argument.
women are not popping pills less because we're going into the workforce. That's actually not true at all either. We're also, like I said to you, consuming alcohol more and binge drinking more than we did in the 1950s, which is why I was trying to get her to say, we need to look at actually give me any reasonable metric of how we can define happiness. Because it's hard, right? Are you happy?
Again, I would argue that men are consuming alcohol and binge drinking more than they were in the 50s as well. So.
Yes or no?
Sure, but wait, hold on. We're actually avoiding what my original point was about rape being the signifier.
Okay, pause. You've been voted out by the majority. Please return to your seat.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. Hi.
Hi.
I like your hat.
Whitney Shanahan. Nice to meet you. I am fascinated by your claim that women have lost happiness since the sexual revolution, since the 1950s. Do you think that there is any tie to happiness and freedom and happiness and choice? Because since 1950s, since the sexual revolution, women have gotten exponentially more freedom and more choice. And for me, as a mother and as a woman, having the freedom to choose what I do, to make my own destiny, makes me infinitely more happy than, say, back before the sexual revolution, when I couldn't get a bank account, couldn't get a home loan, couldn't work outside the home, couldn't travel around without a man, couldn't control my own reproduction. So I feel that happiness, personally, my belief, is tied to our ability to have freedom. And I think that in the United States, protecting freedom and our individual freedoms is what's going to lead us to happiness.
Did you go to college?
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Did you?
Yes, I did. So you have a degree?
Absolutely.
Now, when you went to college, did you go to college because it was simply something that...
Again, same thing. Her strategy is good. She's kind of a one-trick pony, I would say, but she's quite good at it. So this woman goes into kind of a 45-second kind of monologue explaining herself, and then Candace goes to her Rolodex. College. Did you go to college? And then she has her saying yes. And now that this woman has said yes to college, now Candace has her talking points that she's going to put out, not really directly addressing what this woman just said to her.
you wanted to do, or did you think that I have to go to college because in order to get a job I have to have a college degree?
I went to college for art because I was fascinated with art.
Okay. It's just answering my question. Did you go to college? Was that the only reason you went to college, or did you think that I might want to do something in art, so I have to go to college for my career?
I went to school because I wanted to expand my horizons. I mean, I think that's why most people go to university.
No,
why did you go?
That's actually not true. I went, and I think a lot of people go because there's a pressure that if you don't go to college, you're going to be a failure.
It's a choice. Everything's a choice. So taking away choices doesn't make people happier. Taking away freedom doesn't make people happier.
I'm disagreeing with you on the idea that people are feeling more free by financial pressure. I think financial pressure makes people feel remarkably less free.
So you want no bank accounts again? Women not to have credit cards?
I'm not saying that.
So she didn't make the point that people are feeling more free by financial pressure. But because Candace has a Rolodex, she has to now she's arguing with herself. That woman didn't make the claim of women are feeling more free, or women are feeling more free because of financial pressure. She just correlated someone going to college with the fact that society put that pressure on them, and because they have a freedom to go to college, now they're feeling less free because of the financial burden of being forced to go to college by society.
Women shouldn't have access to credit cards or bank accounts. You're putting words in my mouth, so why don't you respond to the words that I'm saying?
Well, less financial pressure. If I don't have a bank account, that's a lot less financial pressure, I guess, right?
Financial pressure in terms of most people that go to college, and I'm counting myself among them, it's because typically in order to get the job that you're being sold is going to make you infinitely happier and infinitely more free, it just requires a college degree. And most of these people, to be clear, have to put themselves, the majority of people have to put themselves into debt. And I don't think anybody would describe debt as a form of freedom, right? I don't think anybody would realistically say...
Let's get back to happiness. So we're here to talk about happiness and how the sexual revolution, and we're not talking about college debt.
I think it's important because we're talking about freedom. You just said that the reason why I feel happy is because I have more freedom. And I am saying that financial restraints and debt doesn't make people feel more free.
So let's eliminate the debt. Let's eliminate college debt. Maybe we should have free college here in the US. That sounds great. Great idea, Candace. I love that idea. All right. Love it. Champion for the people.
Girl. Very nice.
All right, return to your seat.
So that was an interesting point. So Candace is I believe she's a big proponent of no college, and college is a trick, and you get into debt, and the fact that women are allowed to go to college, this is something negative. So she's saying that because you go to college from social pressure, post-sexual revolution, then you have debt. And she's like, well, does debt equal freedom? So she's taking one component of going to college and extrapolating that to saying that someone doesn't have freedom. I would imagine that Candace is married, and she has less freedom having children. I bet if you asked her, Candace, do you have more or less freedom with your children? She would say less. But then I don't think she would agree with, well, I have less freedom, so I'm less happy. She's just taking one component of going to college and saying, well, because I'm less free in this way, the whole entire concept of college is a negative thing. But she wouldn't do that with children. She wouldn't agree that, well, because I have less freedom, because I have children, that makes me less happy.
Surrounded is now a podcast, available wherever you listen. Search Surrounded, plug in, and stay part of the conversation. Anywhere, anytime.
My second claim is that no career will give women as much joy and fulfillment as raising children.
Hi, Candace.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I'm John. Okay, so I feel like a lot of your arguments today are very rooted in a sort of old school perspective, I have to be honest. Like, I think, and I'm not trying to be insulting whatsoever, I feel as though most people would identify that claim as pretty extreme and pretty like...
Children are extreme?
Well, no, that women would get more happiness inherently from raising kids than having a job or deciding what they want to do.
She's doing it again. He did not say that children are extreme, but she has to pigeonhole him.
With their lives.
Why is that? I'm just curious. Why would having children, which is just a natural biological conclusion, be something that sounds extreme?
I just said inherently.
Inherently.
That's the inherent expectation.
Yeah.
That's better for...
It's inherent because it's biological. So I think when we think about things that are inherent, I think biology is a good thing to start with, right? So biologically speaking, men and women come together, they form families, and that's the reason why you're sitting here. That's the reason that I'm sitting here, is because biology is inherent.
Well,
so it's just natural order that we're speaking about, right?
Okay, let's break it down. So why do you believe that? Why do you believe that?
Why do I believe that?
Why do you inherently are happier? Yeah.
Okay, you keep stressing this word inherent.
Yeah.
I think because it speaks to natural order, and every piece of life, I think, is enriched by
You
children.
don't think it's natural for women to get to decide what they want to do with their lives?
I do not think that saying women can decide whether or not they want to go to work or have children is problematic. What I'm saying to you is that women will get the most fulfillment from having a family.
Because it's natural.
It's natural, but also children are wonderful and beautiful and spiritually divine creatures.
I mean, isn't it also natural for women to want to work and to get satisfaction and get a dopamine release from achieving something? So the natural biological argument doesn't work at all, because it is also natural and biological that if a woman has a tree in her yard that's blocking her view of the sun and she chops down that tree, she gets a normal biological physiological response of neurotransmitters that make her feel good because she accomplished something. So just because a certain feeling of biology happens, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. And it's also not, you have to do an action for a baby to happen. So it's not just like something that naturally happens. She's making this argument that because if a woman gets pregnant, then a baby is produced, that's something that just naturally inherent. This is why he's stressing that point, that it inherently is a good thing. But action has to be taken. There's many people in the world who don't have children and they feel more fulfilled and more happy than people who have a whole bunch of children. So the biological, natural argument doesn't work here, because you can extrapolate that from a lot of things. If I were to take cocaine, there would be a natural, biological, physiological response that I would feel really good. And I would say, well, it's natural that I felt good and I got this rush of neurotransmitters when I take cocaine. So does that mean I should always take cocaine because the feeling that I get after I do it is natural? The same way she's saying, oh, because after I have kids, I feel good and natural. That doesn't hold water.
I mean, they're amazing. There's everything about having a child. Yes, it's a lot of work. It's beautiful.
I hear that. Well,
Yeah.
Okay, what if there's a little girl born and it's her dream her entire life to be an author or to be, on TV or any of these things, and having children is very expensive. It takes a lot of time. So how is it better for that, and I understand this is hypothetical, but that hypothetical little girl to have children than to pursue these things that would make her happy as she gets older?
I just think that if she publishes the book and she has a child, she would agree with me that the child was more fulfilling and made her happy. That's what I'm happier than the book did, is what I'm saying. And I say this as a published author of New York Times. I would choose my children over my best-selling book. And I was that little girl who had a dream that it would be really great if I could share my thoughts and ideas in a book. But it is utter insanity for me to reflect on that and say that I would have rather published Blackout than to have my 3 children.
But why is it rather? You see what I'm saying?
It's not rather. I'm just saying
Well, that's
that
your claim. That's your claim, is that it's better.
it will be more fulfilled.
Right.
Yes.
So rather.
Well, if it's an either or, if you're saying it's either or, I'm just saying that if these two things have happened in your life, the thing that will bring you more spiritual fulfillment will be children. And so women who are neglecting that, who are neglecting the pathway to strive toward family because they think their career is going to hug them at night, or they think that when they're on their deathbed, their career is going to come up next to them and say, you were so great to me. I think that they've stepped into a delusion, and I'm hopeful that they wake up from it before it's too late.
All right, pause. Yeah. Sorry, you've been voted out by the majority. Please return to your seat.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
Okay, so currently women make up about 47% of the workforce. If this were the case and that women were just inherently unhappy or unfulfilled working.
Women made up 47% of the U.S. civilian labor force in 2023, according to Pew Research. That's up from 30% in 1950. So more women are working.
And would just prefer to be at home. Why don't they?
Because we've made that, due to prior feminist waves, nearly impossible, because now, which I believe the reason that the government wanted women to enter the workforce is because it gave them an opportunity to tax a household twice. And so this goes back to what I was saying, is that there's a lot of...
The reason why the government wanted women to enter the workforce is because they wanted to tax the household twice. Did she just make that up? There are a number of reasons more women enter the workforce. The Pregnancy Discrimination Act of 1978, access to birth control, recognition of sexual harassment in the workplace, and the ability of women to apply for a line of credit without a male cosigner starting in 1974. But Candace is saying that the government, there was a plan, maybe a conspiracy by the government, that the government wanted more money from its citizens, so it allowed women to enter the workforce, and that was a bad thing.
Financial pressure that is being exerted on young women to enter the workforce, and they do so blindly under this illusion that somehow entering the workforce is going...
And wait a minute, I just realized Candace is in the workforce. She has kids and she's working. She's a podcaster, she's a famous person, so she's in the workforce. And so it's a bit, she's arguing against what she's doing, or maybe later on she'll claim that it's okay for a woman to be in the workforce as long as she already has kids. So she's really fulfilled with her children. That's a bit strange. If she had kids before she started working, then why would she go back to work if it was like the ultimate fulfillment? Or you can do other things, but the priority is to have a kid. So she finished having her kids, and now she can kind of garnish her dish.
To make you more fulfilled, like getting yourself into 6 figures of debt going to college to then take on a career and be in debt and having to pay student loans while you make $35K is going to make you happier. And I'm saying that isn't actually true.
Okay, so I hear that.
Yeah.
At the same time, would you not agree that women can both have a career and have children. I mean, you are actively doing that right now.
And I want to be very clear because
Got a
I'm
point.
actively doing it right now. I would be someone that you would call an exception because I get to work from home. I get to wake up in the morning. I don't have a boss, right? I don't have to go into the office from 9 to 5. I get to then therefore spend the entire morning with my children.
You're an exception, and the 47% of women that make up our labor force are also an exception?
No, the exact opposite. So I'm trying to make it more realistic because I think it's really bad form when people who are able to stay at home, right, and are able to start working at 1:00 p.m. as I do after being around their children. The children are running around all day. Will then preach to you that every woman can have this. That's not the reality. The reality is that the overwhelming majority of people are stuck behind a desk all day and they're not happy. They're not doing work that gratifies them at all. And at the same time, they're suspending.
Well, that's just what career you've chosen. But I think that the issue with your
working 9 to 5.
Ooh, maybe Candace is doing gatekeeping. She's saying, I have it special. I work from home. I get to be with my kids from the time they wake up till 1 p.m. But nobody else should try to do this. I'm the special one. This is don't work a 9 to 5. Only work if you can do what I do. And so don't go to college because I'm the exception, because I get to work from, and I bet a lot more people work from home post-COVID, by the way. So yeah, this is like some sideways gatekeeping she's doing. I'm working and have kids, but you don't. You just have kids, and let me do all the work.
I think that's
okay, yes, but
right?
if it's the job that is making them unhappy, then maybe they should have chosen a different career path and not the structure of the career itself. But my issue with this is that not only is it claiming that women can't both be mothers and have jobs, which we know to be true because millions of women do that. My mother does that. You are actively doing it right now. But it also is qualifying what every single woman in this country wants without any clear evidence. I mean, there's 169 million women in this country. How can you say that you know exactly what every woman secretly wants? Are you asking them?
That wasn't my claim that I secretly know what every single woman wants. I'm saying that if you measure up at the end of your life, what brought you more fulfillment, your career or children, raising children in your family, we will discover that, and there actually have been studies, people that have gone to people on their deathbeds. And
according to the top 5 regrets of the dying by Bronnie Ware, too much work is the number 2 regret behind not living a life true to yourself. Not living a life true to yourself and too much work. I wonder if we dig behind what not living a life true to yourself means. I wonder how many people would say, it'd be interesting to see how many people would say, I wish I wouldn't have had kids. How many would say, I wish I would have kids? But that's kind of broad. That's a little bit broad. But I would imagine that there's a fair number of people who feel like perhaps they didn't live their fullest version of themselves because they had kids for a variety of reasons.
The number 1 regret that people had was that they gave too much to their careers. And this includes men, by the way.
Well, yeah, that's true. I mean, of course, human relation is going to be valued over money and profit.
So then
but
you
at the same time, what does that even
with my argument?
I disagree.
You're agreeing with my argument.
Humans prefer humans over a job, but that's not just singular to women. That's everyone. And my question is, what does that even have to, what is the goal of that? Should every woman quit working and just have a child?
Well, I'm just trying to warn you that if you decide to suspend that pursuit of family because you think that you have to first climb the ladder, a lot of women make that mistake and they don't end up finding a partner.
But that's their right. It's free will.
You would definitely have a right to make a mistake.
You don't get to say what people should and shouldn't do.
I don't think my claim is this is what people should or should not do. I'm just simply stating that my claim is that you will be more fulfilled if you focus on
you
trying
don't get to decide what other people are fulfilled by.
Okay, I'm making my claim here that women are infinitely more fulfilled in the household and raising children than they are taking that 9 to 5 job.
But you have no evidence of that. In fact, you are evidence against your own claim.
I'm not evidence against my own claim.
You are.
I'm saying
You're at work right now.
I've literally said, I am telling you, women cannot have it all. That is an illusion, and that is an illusion that is stressing women out. And I think it is the reason why so many women are turning to popping pills, why there's been such a significant, more than 1,000% increase
But
since
men can have it all.
1999.
Men can be fathers and have a job, but women can't do that.
I don't think you can have it all.
It sounds like you're devaluing women. I think women can do everything that a man can do, and men have done this historically throughout time and memoriam.
I think women is our debate topic today. So
women exist in a society with men. We are comparing
women are trying to be both women and men, and that is why women are unhappy today. Is because actually, what's quite ironic about the feminist movement is that
women are just trying to be people.
I think women have been taught that being a woman is not enough, and that you have to also aspire to be a man, and that's the irony. It's like a psychological conditioning. What feminists went out and did and said.
Ooh, very interesting. That women are trying to be men, and women have been taught that being a woman is not enough. I would be interested to ask her, who does she think is teaching people this? Because we could say before the sexual revolution happened, the world, let's just say America, United States, was ruled and governed by men. So did men decide, I want women to be more like us, so let's spur on or allow feminists to do a sexual revolution so that women could be more like us, and that would in turn make women less happy, and then that would make us less happy too. It's just weird. She has a lot of like, the government did, or I believe that, all of kind of these puppet master claims about society.
is that in order for women to have value, women need to be like men. And I'm saying that actually women and men are biologically different. There are differences in our behavior. There are differences in our desires. And I think evidence of the feminist movement, by the way, shows us that, because even when women enter into the college education space.
Okay, I think I know what she's trying to do. This is why she was stuck on, are you a woman? Now she's bringing up, oh, there's some biological differences. I think what she wants to do is that she wants to get into an argument on what is a woman and what are the biological differences between men and women, because her claim is quite shaky. I don't think that anyone outside of a kind of paid conservative Rolodex sphere would actually say the sexual revolution was a bad thing. I think even conservative women, I think even church-going women would in general agree that it's good for women to go to college, for them to have their own credit card and to be able to get a divorce if they want to, if they're in an unfulfilled relationship. I think what she wants to do, I think she's trying to lure someone in to have the what is a woman debate, and if there's differences between men and women kind of debate. Anytime there's like a feminist debate or a misogynistic debate, usually people on the right side of the political sphere will somehow try to pigeonhole who they're arguing against, or try to morph the conversation into what is a woman. And there are biological differences between men and women. So I think she's fishing here, especially when this young lady seems to be very well read, and she's combating all of Candace's points really well. And I think when she gets out of that Rolodex, now she's just fishing. What is a woman? There are biological differences between men and women, and she wants someone to try to refute that, so she can pigeonhole them to make them look like they're crazy.
The pathways of career that we choose are different from men because we're biologically different, right?
Okay, so let's say that this is true, that women truly are more fulfilled at home. Now, the average cost of raising a child a year is around $21,000 or more. So my issue is, are you saying that women...
Lending Tree estimates it costs $29,419 per year to raise a child. There are multiple estimates above $20K per year. This girl is on point with her facts.
Just suddenly stop working, and now the onus is entirely on men. Like, the society that you're pitching is not sustainable economically.
It was sustained economically.
But it's not right now.
Pause. Naima, you've been voted out by the majority. Please return to your seat.